Hi, I'm Renny Hartman. I'm here not talking about something very, very literary and very literature that you would be reading by assignment in high school and college, but popular reading by Robert B. Parker, who created the Spencer for Hire novels, the Jesse Stone novels, the Sonny Randall novels. He wrote a number of books starting in 73. He is deceased. He lived 1932 to 2010. But his estate and his publishers have chosen people to continue in his style, and they have been very good about it. And about one of the novels come out a year. This one is a Jesse Stone that came out this year, and it was written by Mike Lupus. Parker's on top, and Lupus is below him. The novels have been produced in movies, television shows. There was a Spencer for Hire in the 80s from 85 to 88 that I think is probably available still in places on repeat TV, like Me TV. And the books are very much written in dialogue so that they were pretty easy to adapt. And sometimes you can just read them as if you were actually seeing them. And the dialogue is often very ironic, sarcastic. There's a little satire. There's a little occasionally politics. Both are connected to New England. The Spencer for Hire is set in Boston, and at the beginning of the book there is always a map of Boston, so that you can see where he went to work out, where he went running, where the harbor is, where the main parks are, where his girlfriend lived, Susan, who's a psychiatrist now, and supposedly based on Parker's wife when they were together and married. Jesse Stone is an LA cop who was in burglary and homicide in LA, but he drank, and he eventually was driven out of the police, and he responded to a long distance request from a little place called Paradise on the coast. It's outside Boston. He goes to Boston on occasions, but it's a little seaside town. It's got a very small police department. He's still struggling with his drinking, and I am going to read a little piece from one of the chapters. In the morning, Jesse called Vinnie Morris at the office. He kept above his bowling alley on Concord Turnpike. You need something capped, Vinnie said. Capped? Jesse asked. I was watching some Sopranos last night, Vinnie said, so shoot me. I see what you did there, Jesse said. Vinnie Morris was a legendary shooter all the way back to his days working for the Boston crime bosses, Joe Braz and Gino Fish. Gino Fish is in the early books, but he's now deceased as a character. When they were still alive, it was, Jesse knew, a stretch, the key that Vinnie had gone straight. He just wasn't as crooked as he once was, and more on the right side of things than he was on the left side of things, or not. He has a number of different characters. He has the characters of all sexes, all gender orientations, all racial and ethnic backgrounds. He's occasionally in New York City. And of course, for the most part, the novels are like Midsummer Murders on television. They deal with murder in the places that they're in, whether it's in Boston or whether it's in Paradise. Sonny Randall is a character that occurs in the Jesse Stone books, but she also has some books. There's 6 books evidently just written for her that are outside the Jesse Stone books, so that Parker had a pretty wide ranging interest in characters and in plot, and how the people interact and how it is that when you work, say, in a tourist area, since we live in Tom's River in a kind of tourist area where I'm 2 blocks from the river and about 5 blocks from the bay and the ocean. I worked years ago for a little place called Ma Ferguson's that's now been subsumed by Lucky Leo's, but was one of the few places actually that served inside on the boardwalk in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Now, since we've rebuilt the boardwalk, there's been a number of restaurants that have built on the boardwalk. But we were unique at that time, and you got a unique perspective on people, how they visited, some of the things that they did. One of the things that they did that was recurring all the time in the summer is they sent little children to go to the foot of the lifeguard station so that the lifeguards would watch them. And at the end of the day, at 5 or 6 o'clock, when the beach was closing and there would no longer be lifeguards on, there would be an announcement from the lifeguards headquarters on Summit Avenue. Please come collect Ronald with his yellow duck, who was parked at Hamilton and the boardwalk around 10 this morning because he needs to go home. And you see that same kind of atmosphere occurs very frequently in Paradise because it's a small area. It is beginning to develop. People are moving out of the cities. There's a number of plots that involved land deals, building on the bay and the ocean, how the Environmental Protection Agency and the federal agencies are involved. And often the state police are involved. There's characters of the state police. And in the Jesse Stone, because of his alcoholism and because he was driven out of the police in LA, actually regularly sees a psychiatrist who is a former cop. And you get all of their interactions also. In this current book, Stone is definitely not drinking. He's talking about donuts all the time and saying, well, I don't have to have them. I could give them up if I wanted to. And he says, that's what most drunks say. They say they don't have to drink. They can give it up if they want to. Spencer for Hire is a younger man. Actually, in the TV shows for Jesse Stone, Tom Selleck plays him, but I think Selleck is closer to my age at the moment, and Stone is probably late 40s, early 50s, but something like his Magnum character, because both Stone and Magnum were originally talented athletes and lost their positions there because of a bad knee, bad shoulder, bad arm, and aren't in sports anymore. But the sports is actually very much involved in it. Spencer does not have that quite as much as the Stone novels do. But Spencer is the one that started. There were 40 novels written in Parker's lifetime. They won everything. They won the Edgar Awards. They won all the mystery possible awards and citations that could be given to people. And when asked what he thought of his plots and his characters, he said he just did this to support his family and make his family happy, and made him happy, and it made his readers happy. He was evidently a person that was decent enough to get along with, and has been followed so much that a number of writers can copy his style and still produce the books and his characters. So I would say, as much as I often say, you really should read the Brothers Karamazov, you really should read Zhivago, Dr. Zhivago, I would say that I read 2 or 3 of these kinds of books a week. They're easy to read. They tend to run around 300, 350 pages, mostly dialogue, easy to get through, definitely written to a upper elementary school level, and quite a lot of fun. And a number of my friends and I share them around. We call ourselves the movie crew, because before the pandemic, almost every Saturday we would go to a movie, and we would go to dinner afterwards. We don't exactly belong to a book club, although we certainly do occasionally discuss books that we've read and that we've shared around. I am no longer in the book buying process, so I just take what other people are sharing. But one of my friends, I'll mention her, Bonnie Drucker, she's on the committee for the Ocean County Library, and she collects used books because they make good money and they distribute hundreds of thousands of books when they have their annual book sales. So that's really worth looking into. So I would say try Robert Parker, whether you want to look at Stone, whether you want to look at Randall, whether you want to look at Spencer. If you want, take a look on YouTube, see if you can find Spencer for Hire. Robert Urich starred in the original series. He was very popular at the time, especially for miniseries. But this was an actual TV show that he happened to be in. Okay.